So here we are then, in page Kuf Mem Vav. Actually, we got over to Kuf Mem Zayin. And second paragraph, starting with the word Bakama. Remember, we were discussing the value of silence. Okay, silence. Which doesn't mean that a person should be a mute, but rather that a person should be economical with his words and speak only when necessary about things that are necessary in ways which are necessary. But to be overly verbose and talking about many, many different things and so forth and so on, which is not necessary, one should avoid, because we mentioned that, generally speaking, a person can only talk about things that he knows, or at least that he thinks that he knows. But he certainly can't talk about things that he doesn't know. Well, what I mean to say is, yeah, he can't truthfully talk about things that he doesn't know. Yeah. So it means then that, generally speaking, a person is going to be learning more when he's in a listening mode than in a speaking mode, because he can generally speak about things he's familiar with, if he's being truthful. But if he wants to learn something that he doesn't know, he has to hear it from someone else, and you can't talk and listen at the same time, unless you're Israeli. Well, it doesn't really matter whether you listen. The main thing is you're heard. So Kuf Mem Zayin continues. Yeah, we continue with Kuf Mem Zayin. The second paragraph, starting with the word Bekama. Bekama mekomos Tova shtika. We find that being quiet is very good in many different scenarios, instances. Kagon, for example, Adam shepogea bo midas hadin. A person who, God forbid, has been met by the attribute of judgment, meaning, God forbid, something bad has happened to him. Kmo ba'aron. For example, like we find in the Torah, the quintessential example of Aaron when his sons died. Nadav and Avihu, if you remember, they were struck by spiritual lightning, which sizzled their souls out of themselves, and they died. Reasons for this are several, but in any case, they certainly were righteous, but they did things which perhaps were not acceptable for their level, and as a result, divine judgment was quick to be executed. And they died. And we find V'yidom Aharon. Aaron was quiet. What does that mean? He did not complain against God. He did not curse his plight. Right? He did not rebel against the divine decree. He was quiet. He accepted it humbly. V'im shama v'nei adam shemecharef inoso. Or, for example, if a person hears other people despising him or speaking in a denigrating way about him, he should be quiet. I mean, I suppose if you could punch them in the mouth and knock a few teeth out, that would be better. But if you can't...
You do that silently, get the best of both worlds.
I guess you could do that.
He may make some noise when you strike, but...
I mean, if you could effectively, stop them from doing this without making a whole, scene and machlokes, an argument about it, then of course I don't think you have to sit there and listen to that abuse. Yeah, but I guess the point is, if you can't stop it, or you can't without there being a fray, a barroom brawl, then suffer it silently. V'zot hi amala gedola. This is a great attribute. Lishtok the mecharafin, to be quiet in the presence of people who are embarrassing him, disparaging him, and so forth and so on. There's a teaching which associates the idea of staying quiet when being embarrassed, and having God fulfills one's wishes, one's desires. I don't remember the actual details of the connection, but was that? One thing I did say yesterday, which is when I was thinking about this, is that it says, the pasuk says, "Tole oretz al blima," and Chazal and the Gemara say that Kadosh Baruch Hu is Tole oretz. He maintains the world, right, on Misha bolem piv b'shas meruva, who shuts his mouth at the time of an argument. But now I'm adding, the extra point of that, which I didn't mention yesterday here, is that and one who does do this, it's auspicious for having his own prayers and needs answered by God.
But if you don't say anything, then Wouldn't that, at least for some people, lead to some sort of rage?
Rage?
Yeah, anger. They're keeping it in.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be that, you know, what this teaching would encourage would be, yes, to keep it in, even if it means kind of, you know, having to consult, you know, rage management specialists, and not, you know, get into an argument, about it.
You have to be pretty.
I suppose it probably would be better to diffuse it some other way. Maybe the point is not to, like, you know, answer in kind. They you know, they shout at you, so you shout back, or they insult you, so you insult back. It'd probably be, this teaching would probably encourage us not to respond either by insulting back or shouting back, because it's probably not going to do much other than result in more shouting and more insulting.
You don't put out fire with fire.
Right. You know, which would be fine if you're Israeli, but of course if you're not, then you don't want to do that. No, you know, I'm Israeli too, but you know, so I you know, but it does not mean that you couldn't approach the person or some other person who might have an influence on person and say, listen, this was a very ugly scenario. I don't know why it happened, but, you know, we have to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so you can certainly, you know, just do something to address it, but maybe this is saying that the proper way and time is not in the heat of the argument or when people are getting around laughing and scoffing. It's not going to help. And the self-control that's necessary to exercise at that time not to respond is viewed as a very, you know, great thing. If a person can exercise that degree of self-control and not respond, that's considered to be a very great thing. It shows that he has great control over himself. And the world is sustained in the merit of such a person. It kind of makes sense. When there's argumentation, when there's fighting, when there's, you know, insulting and all of that, in a way that's like, that's a form of destruction. A certain part of the world is destroyed at that time. This person rectifies that by being quiet and not adding to the destruction.
You don't have to sit there and take it. You can leave too.
You can leave, yeah. Yeah, that's also part of it, of accepting it silently. Or just,
The
you
longer
know,
you
just
sit
to leave.
there and silently take it, the more fool the guy looks like.
Yeah.
Because he's just shouting at someone who doesn't care. He's
Yeah.
silent for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, that's true. It's a very difficult nisai on that because, you know, another way of looking at it, of course, would be the longer this person stays there and silently accepts this abuse, the more of a fool he looks like. So,
No. The person shouting is
yes.
a fool.
Okay, I know. I mean, like, there are two ways of looking at it. Some people might look at it this way. So it would be a great challenge for him to look at it your way and not give in to the more inferior way of looking at it, which would be, you know, the other possibility. But yeah, you're right. If he's ranting and raving like a maniac and this person maintains his calm and composure, it's just a sign that this guy's probably the one who's off his rocker and not the one who's being shouted at and demeaned in this way. Yes, another very opportune time to exercise this attribute of being quiet is in the shul, the newsroom. I mean, the shul. That's a time when people should be quiet and not talk about all types of things that unfortunately one might be challenged to speak about. Zehu tznius. This is modesty. And a person needs great strengthening in order to direct his heart, right, single-heartedly to prayer when he's in the shul and not talking about other things. Because it's very, as if, you know, for obvious reasons, it's a communal gathering place. And everybody goes there. So obviously, I mean, people are likely to try and, you know, take care of other business while there. And that's not the place to do that. If so, maybe outside in the foyer or even outside in the parking lot, but not inside by the pewers. By the pews. Ve'im hu yoshev ben hachamim. If a person is sitting among wise men, like myself, I was fortunate to sit among you wise men. Yishtok v'yishma divrem. You should be quiet and listen to their words. Go ahead, it's your turn. Yeah? Be quiet and listen to their words, which I try and do when I'm not talking. Ki kashu shotek, when he's quiet, shomea ma shelo yada. He'll hear things which he doesn't know. This is the point that we've made. V'kshu medaber, but when he's speaking, einu mosif yediyah, he doesn't add anything to his knowledge. He might even be speaking about things that he doesn't know anything about, but he's certainly not adding anything to his knowledge. Achim hu mesupak b'divrei chachamim, if he, however, is unsure about the words of the sages, that's not a time to be quiet. That's a time to ask. Yishal mehem, clarify. What is it they're saying? Ki zois shtika ra'ahi me'od. That's very bad, inappropriate, wrong to be quiet at that time. Shlomo Melech alav v'shalom amar, and Solomon said, the great King Solomon, es lachshos ve'es ledaber. Es lachashos, it's a time to speak quietly, I mean to be silent. Yes? Like the word, right, lachash. Es lachashos ve'es ledaber, a time to be quiet and a time to speak. Pa'amim she'dibur tov u'pa'amim she'hashtika tova. Sometimes speaking is good, sometimes being quiet is good. V'amar chacham, the wise man said, Kishelo timtza adam she'melamedecha musar. If you don't find a person who can teach you musar, hidabek b'shsika, you should cleave to silence. Pen tidaber shtus, because you might speak otherwise foolishness. So I was told, speak up, kid, because if you don't talk, they're going to think you're stupid. But it's better not to talk than to say something stupid. Right? Uba'avur she'oloshon kal me'od, since the tongue is very agile. The tongue is probably the most agile part of the entire body. Probably, right? I think I read like there's an unbelievable number of muscles associated with the tongue, which enables the tongue to move extremely rapidly, with great agility, in many different directions, like no other part of the body. That's an amazing thing when you think about it. You're chewing your food, yeah? That wonderful baked ziti we had today during lunch. If it weren't for your tongue's agility to swivel and swerve its way through your molars as it's pushing the ziti between them to get them chewed properly, yeah, you'd end up chewing your tongue more than the ziti.
It gets out of the way.
Yeah. The tongue goes, you don't even feel it. It moves the food in and out between your molars in a way you don't even feel it, with great agility. But sometimes, like when you're talking and eating at the same time, then you feel it. Yeah? There's a tremendous amount of, again, the way the muscles are built around the jawbones, upper and lower, particularly lower, and the specific size of the teeth relative to their surface, and the way they clench on one another, tremendous pressure there. You'd be hard-pressed to find a machine that can replicate that type of pressure in such a small area. Right? And it goes, boom, on your tongue. Oh God, that hurts. Yeah? So you're not supposed to talk when you eat. That enables your tongue to do what it's supposed to be doing, like when you're eating. That's how agile our tongue is. What separates human beings from animals? Our power of speech. I have never thought about this, but perhaps it's not, coincidental that the tongue is so specially designed. It's like the one part of our body which really makes us different than the animals. I mean, our minds are obviously different as well, but they also have a brain, and we have a brain. We think with our brains, they think with it, but it's only our tongue that we can do something that they can't do with. Right? What's that? Well, what else? What, thumb?
Yeah.
Well, they have digits. I mean, they can do things with the digits. I mean, the digit might function differently, but they can use.
Communicate still.
They communicate?
They don't. I don't know.
They communicate through sound, but not through language.
Right. Yeah. Also, we make moral decisions.
We make moral decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they rely on instinct and survival a lot more.
Yeah.
So,
What? Animals.
Oh.
Our fine feathered friends.
So human
With their
beings
potential
are
for
the
development, so
only
lack of a thought.
Right.
creature that's unique with the power of speech, and now we're learning how we should not use this gift willy-nilly.
Well,
freely. As well.
that's right. Or another way of putting it would be to use it properly,
Yeah.
Yeah, just
like any other God-given talent. I mean, it's a power that we have, and we're taught not since.
So unique as well.
Yes. Yes, and since this power is so unique, we have even more of a mandate to ensure that we don't just use it relentlessly with no type of supervision whatsoever, but rather that we harness the power of speech so that it's good and productive and not harmful. Which has never quite made the correlation between, how uniquely powerful the tongue is physiologically and the possible relationship that might have with our power of speech.
The fact that our tongue lets us use words like physiological.
Yes, that's also a verbal tongue twister which our tongues enable us to navigate through. But very good. So what were we saying here? That yes, yishtok, adam shemala musar, shaloshon kama. Second last paragraph on the page. Since the tongue is so agile, tzarich lizer me'od lahachbid alashon. You have to be very careful not to overburden it. Lishmor social idaber. And therefore you have to guard it so that it shouldn't be talking all the time, because it's very easy to unleash. Rov dvarim mimasa kaved, ukfedus shel rov dvarim, yosef ukfedus shel rov shtika. I think what he's saying is many words are like a heavy weight, a big imposition. But the heaviness of many words and the heaviness of many words is more than the heaviness of much silence. Basically, it's a lot more taxing to overtalk than to be overly silent. V'im shoma mechaver medaber, and if you heard his friend speaking, yishtok ad shisam dvarav, he should be quiet until his friend finishes his words. Ki meishiv davar beterem yishma ivelesi loy uchlima. A person who responds to something before he's actually heard it in full, that is like a wickedness for the person and also an embarrassment, maybe for the other person. And, it's true, you have to work on this, because certainly, even in a normal mundane conversation, all the more so when it becomes somewhat of a heated argument. The person says something, and your mind gets to working fast because you've got to stay on your mental toes, and you figure you understand what this person's going to say, so rather than wait for him to finish it, you figure you'll anticipate what he's going to say and answer before he finishes. Number one, that's a good technique, because you haven't enabled him to really fully communicate himself. Number two, you've cut him off in the middle. Number three, you have forestalled his argument by pulling the rug from under his feet. That's not a good way. That doesn't engender healthy conversation, communication. Yeah. Rather, it's important to kind of hear the person out, let him finish the idea, and then respond. If the person's repeating himself again and again and again, saying the same thing over and over and over, like yours truly, then it might be appropriate, if you were not having to sit on that side of the table, to say, could you stop repeating yourself? Let me have a chance to respond. That can happen. But even for example, being in the position of an educator, I find that, of course, we talk words of Torah, and some of the Torah ideas are repetitive, and of course, often when you have beginners, a lot of, over the years, some questions tend to repeat themselves. So you get used to hearing certain questions. From a particular topic that, there are going to be certain questions. And a student starts to, and you answer before he does. That's not right. You've got to give him the opportunity to, express what it is he wants to say. Ask the question or make the comment and fully listen before you respond. That's only respectful to the person, and if you don't do that, it's a great crime. You are suffocating, stifling this person. It's not kind. What were you going to say? Or was it you? I don't want to, yeah.
How do you deal with people who always interrupt? Like, you're trying to get to a point, and before you get to the point...
Excuse me, would you please let me just finish my idea, and I'd be more happy to hear you? That's what you say. Yeah. Excuse me. I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say, but please let me finish the idea.
So how do you deal with that?
That's what I just answered you.
Oh,
That was my answer.
okay.
You say to the person, you're in the middle of speaking, right? And the person interrupts. So you say, excuse me, I was in the middle. Please let me finish the idea, and I'll be more than happy to hear you.
Okay.
No?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Just be direct about it.
That'll probably work with most people.
Yeah, if of course, if it's the first time it happened, or it hasn't happened with this person, or this person is not doing it in a mean or obnoxious way, so of course you can find a polite way of saying it, which was whatever, you just find a way of saying it. I'm sure what you had to say is important, but I kind of feel like what I have to say is important as well. So please let me finish. You can say it with a smile on your face. Please let me finish, and I'd be more happy to hear what you have to say. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Well, it's okay. It happens to all of us. Just don't let it happen again. Whatever. Let the person know that. Now, if it's a person who does it time and time again, so again, if it's during an argument, that's probably not the best time to let the person know about it. But we'll find another time to diffuse them. Say, you're a great guy. We're friends. Even friends can argue, and if friends do argue, then we must be great friends because we argue all the time. But you've got to let me finish what I'm saying, please. I'm more than happy to talk to you about anything you want, but don't you realize that, you might say, but you don't realize, but you also interrupt me all the time too. We tend to we tend, like we said yesterday, we tend to be very forgiving about our own faults and very pedantic about others. And so often we notice that he's always interrupting, but that's because I'm interrupting. He's just responding in kind. I'm sure you personally don't interrupt.
No, sometimes when...
Wait a minute, you are.
So yeah.
No, I'm joking.
No, yeah, sometimes when you see problems in other people, it's our own problem.
Yeah, Chazal say, posel b'mumay posel. You find yourself, pointing out other people's faults, it's probably because you have some manifestation of those faults yourself. That's why you're aware of them. Now, it might be that you don't express that fault because you've worked very hard to overcome it. But because you have and are grappling with it, you are aware of it in someone else. And that's why Chazal say, what do you mean? I don't steal. He's stealing. I don't steal. You may not steal in practice, but if it's a big issue by you, it's probably because you're challenged by it as well, even if you don't do it. So that's also a mum, even if you don't do it. Oh, he's so arrogant. I mean, I can't stand that guy. He thinks he's the best guy in the world.
No, I am.
Yeah. Why are you so concerned about that? Yeah. Well, no, I'm not like that. I'm very humble. Yeah. You might be trying to be. Yeah. But I don't. The only difference between the two of you is he's challenged by it and you're challenged by it. He's just less able to control it than you are. But the mum is the same. Yeah.
What does mum mean?
Mum is like a fault, a shortcoming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A blemish. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So on Kuf Mem Zayin at the bottom of the page, Mishuhu Rogil Bishasika, somebody who is accustomed to being quiet, Nitzol Mikama Averos, he will be spared from several transgressions. From Hanifus, which we said is like flattery. There might be a more accurate English word for that, but I meant flattery in terms of, flattery with the intention of, like we said, getting something out of somebody else. Umelitzonus, also from just, frivolity. Mulashon hara, we all know what that is. Mishkarim, from lies. Gidufim, from curses. Because when a person, let's say, curses him, speaks badly about him, if he answers, so he's going to just respond now doubly. Like we said before, if you respond in kind, it's just going to escalate and get in reverse. And so the wise man said, Ani shomea davar hara, v'ani shotek. I hear something bad, and I'm quiet. Amar, they said to him, V'lama, why? Amar lahem, he said, Imashi ve'enei lahem l'marachafei. If I answer them, these people who are speaking about me badly, ani yorei she'eshma cherufim acherim yoyser kashim mino yishaynim. Then I'm concerned that I'm going to hear even worse curses than we'll start with. Ullman, he said, Kshehiskil cholek, Ksheaksil cholek im a chacham ve'chacham shoisek, when the foolish person, I guess, dispenses of his foolishness upon the wise man, and the wise man is quiet, teshuva gedolehi leksil. That's a great answer to the fool. That's kind of like what you were saying before, that if one person is dissing another and he's quiet, so that kind of is an answer to the person who's dissing. It just kind of shows, I guess that's what you were saying. That's the best answer. This guy is heaping abuse upon another person, and that person is quiet. That's like the best way of getting. That's like
Putting
the best.
the guy who's shouting abuse in his place.
That's like the best way. That's like the best response. It's just showing how, how lowly the person who's shouting is.
While at the same time emphasizing
Without having
how
saying
control
anything.
You are.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tshuva G'doli, Leksil. So the same here. When a wise man's quiet and the fool is flipping his tongue, that's the best answer for the fool. You're speaking. If the wise person doesn't answer, so what are you talking about? V'amar she'aksil mitzdarech b'shtikas hachacham, and the fool has greater anguish over the silence of the wise man, yoser mishim haya meshiv lo, even more so than if he had answered him. That's just like you said, right? Exactly what you said. V'alzei nemar, regarding this, says, al ta'an ksil kivalto. Don't answer the fool according to his foolishness. And when a fool says something stupid to somebody else, and you respond in kind, that doesn't hurt him nearly as much as when you're silent, because it's almost like you're saying, you're not even worth responding to. What you said is not even worth addressing. You could say that, or you could just do it by not saying anything. That's what it's conveying. I don't think you should do that with the intention of getting the person back.
No.
Right.
That's not the point.
That's revenge.
Yeah, what?
That'll be
That's like revenge.
Yeah.
Real? Yes, it would be like revenge. Yeah,
It
yeah.
also defeat the purpose.
Yeah, I mean, you should really just be quiet because you don't want to escalate an argument. In truth, this person is going to feel bad about the fact, he's going to feel anguish over the fact that you didn't respond, which hopefully would be a reason for him ultimately, right, to shut up. Initially, it might cause him to say, that same silence might cause him to say again and again, trying to egg you on. But like you said earlier, when he sees you don't respond, so he'll shut up.
I shouldn't have said it earlier. I shouldn't just done what you said, listened, and we get to it now.
Well, no, you're a wise person. You anticipated where we're going. And furthermore, Adam yichol legalois lo sodos, a person can reveal to him secrets. Kevan she'enu ragil berov dvarim lo yigale. And since he knows, since this is a person who is not verbose, he's not talking all the time, so people will feel confident that he won't reveal the secrets that they tell him. One guy goes to another guy and says, look, I heard the most amazing thing, but I'll tell you, but you got to promise me you won't tell anybody. Jake, you want to hear what Jake told me? Right? So he might say, yeah, tell me, or he might say no, whatever. But when this person has something to tell, he's certainly not going to tell this guy, because you can't be relied on it. You can't be relied to keep a secret. And we also know that there's such a person who doesn't speak very much. He's not accustomed to speaking slander either. Regarding this, it says, Mavis v'chaim biyad lashon. Death and life you have in the hand of the tongue. Yes? Death and life is in the hand of the tongue. So the tongue is a very agile instrument which can be used to bring about death or life. Death by speaking slander, life by speaking words of Torah, for example. Ki odom oisei b'lashono yoiser mima she'oisei b'charbo. A person can cause more damage with his tongue than with his sword. The pen is mightier than the sword. Is an expression of this. I mean, right? The pen is just conveying language. The primary instrument to convey language is the tongue. So the pen is mightier than the sword. Ki odom oimed kan v'moiser havero harachok mimeno lemisa. A person can stand here and decree upon another person death. Hang him. The trap is pulled loose. Aval lecherev einu memis ele besamuch. But a sword can only kill from close proximity. Lechen nivru ba'odam shtei naim ushtei uznaim ushtei nichiraim ufe echad. For this reason, a person was created with 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, but only 1 mouth. Lomar shima'ed b'diburo, to indicate that he should minimize the thing that he's speaking of.
So I don't know what the source is, but I heard that also you're guarded twice with your lips on your teeth.
Yes.
Before you can speak.
Yes. Yeah. It's an interesting. Your ears, you don't really have any kind of protection. Your eyes, you've got your lids.
You can flip this over.
Yeah.
Having 2 mouths and talking over yourself.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that teaching. Is that you've got 2 of all these others, but only 1 mouth, because people speak evil enough as it is. If they had 2 mouths, imagine how much evil they would speak. Yeah. Or another explanation I heard is that with 1 mouth you have to choose. You can't speak good and bad. So as long as you're speaking good, you won't be speaking bad.
We kind of have metaphorically 2 mouths now. Like we can type online something and spread it while you're speaking. Yeah, I guess you could do that. Post this and
Yeah, you have to be coordinated to do that. I can't do that. But I guess there is an idea of having a forked tongue. Our cousins, the Native Americans, speak about speaking with a forked tongue.
The Indians.
Yes.
White man speaking forked tongue.
Yes, white man speaks forked tongue.
Indians said that.
Pale face. Yeah. So what's that? I guess the forked tongue. What it means it. What does that actually mean? A forked tongue? It means they're lying.
No,
Words are
that's
going
what I
in 2
mean,
directions
that's
at
what I mean.
once.
Forked tongue, fork.
Yes, a fork in 2 directions. How can you speak in 2 directions?
Your messages are going like.
I mean, he lies. On one hand he says this, and on the other hand he says.
So where's the forked tongue? You're not communicating 2 things. You're communicating 1 thing, which is deceptive.
He makes promises and he doesn't keep them. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they meant.
Yes, that's what I meant. I'm just wondering how that's related to the forked tongue. I guess you have to be connected to Torah Shabbal Peh over there.
From one mouth, the same.
Uh-huh.
You're supposed to have to say one thing. I'll give you this land, or I'll have my peace, and then they go and fight. The same from the same mouth.
Okay.
I think that's
Well, when we go to their yeshiva, we'll ask. Okay. Anyway, that's the idea. Yeah. They're not around anymore because the pale face spoke with a forked tongue.
Goldman had for $24.
Yeah, is that right? Sold Manhattan for $24. Wow. Wow.
They didn't know what money. They knew today was
Oh. Well, maybe we should speak about reparations or something. Mm.
Nothing we can do to repair what we did.
No, nothing can be
This
done.
March
Uh-huh.
to give them the land we decided was good for them. Millions died. Well, there weren't even millions left after we went through them.
Yeah.
Who's we?
The American.
We, our, yes, our.
Right, I'm sorry, I'm not in America, I know.
Our ancestors. Yeah. All right. So, hashtika yafa l'chachamim. Silence is good for wise men. Kal v'chomer l'tipshim, all the more so for foolish people. Sayeg l'chachma shtika. A guard for wisdom, way of ensuring that a person has wisdom, is through shtika, Samad achoila mishtoika. Excuse me, that's the Gemara. The Gemara says Samad achoila, a remedy for all is shtoika, being shtika, being quiet. This connects to what we were kind of exploring yesterday about how silence is being silent is described as being actually good for the body. However, sometimes being silent is bad. It says, ki ivalto, pen chacham ve'enav. Another verse says, unlike the one we said before, altan ksil ki ivalto, don't answer the fool according to his foolishness. Here it says, answer the fool according to his foolishness. Why? Because otherwise, he'll think himself wise in his eyes. Why? He shut you up. Here, he was able to say something, the wise man was quiet. He was obviously not able to respond to. So that'll just bolster his feeling of being confident. When is this? B'divrei Torah. That's talking about words of Torah. If the fool wants to talk foolishness about mundane matters, there's no point to answer him. You're going to answer the fool according to his foolishness. But if he starts spewing forth foolishness about words of Torah, that's not the time to be quiet. Then you've got to answer him. You're speaking foolishness.
What if you don't know?
If you don't know, then I guess there's really not much for you to say. You might say what you're saying sounds kind of stupid. I can't prove why that is, but I'm sure that a rabbi could explain why what you're saying is ridiculous. No. You might say that I'm not sure what you're saying. What you're saying, and I'm not convinced that what you're saying is true. It sounds like you're ridiculing the Torah, and I if I had to choose between the truth of the Torah and the truth of what you're saying, I would probably prefer the truth of the Torah. But unfortunately, I can't really prove what I'm saying.
I've been in that situation before.
Yes. I think
the person I was talking to was a relative.
Yeah.
They're like, I've spoken to an anthropologist, and they're trying to say that's not
but
true.
the anthropologist comes from a monkey, according to his own admission. So what does he know?
Right.
He's a monkey. I don't know. You say to the person, you're speaking monkey business. Yeah. What? I don't know. They tell a story about it. I guess it was unfortunately, my memory's not great, and it's not getting greater with my old age. But there's a story about a certain mayor. You mentioned New York, a certain mayor of New York, and they hosted there a great rabbi from Europe, and the mayor stood up in front of crowds of thousands of people, and he said, just this rabbi's face disproves evolution of man from a monkey. I don't remember the names of who the mayor was and who the rabbi was, but such a saintly, holy individual, right, could not have evolved from an animal. It's two separate things, two separate species. But in any case, yes, we've all, we all have been in that scenario, and the thing is that, that's you say. Look, what you're saying doesn't sit right with me. I can't explain why, and can't disprove you. But it doesn't sound to me that it's that fits in with the truth of the Torah, and I would probably consider the Torah to be more likely to be true than what you're saying. I can't disprove it though. But I'm sure a knowledgeable rabbi would see right through what you're saying. Of course, what you say and how you say it would depend on the way it's said and who it's being said by. You could say it in a polite way. You could say it in more of a kind of more of a defensive way, or more of an offensive way, depending on the scenario. But in any case, if we did see a source in the verse that a person should be quiet in the face of a fool, that's only for mundane matters. But when he says foolishness about Torah, you should answer to the best of your ability. And if you can't answer directly, then this is still an answer, which is, I'm sure there's an answer, even if I don't know it. Somebody knowledgeable could certainly straighten out the mess you're making. Im roye sheksilim milaglegim al divrei chachamim. if he sees that the fools are making foolish remarks about the words of the wise, ya'anem lahashivam mita'usam, answer them in order to respond to their mistake. Shelo yu chachamim be'eineihem, so that they should not continue to be as wise and knowing in their own eyes. If you see a person transgress, you should rebuke him. Tell him this is wrong. So then I guess this would be another scenario where you should not remain quiet. Solomon already said, a quiet response will settle down anger. So that if you are rebuking a person, I guess his point here is you should do so when it's appropriate, and that's usually in most scenarios, in a kind and loving way, and not in a derogatory, deprecating type of a way. V'loshan raka tishbar gorim, a soft tongue can break hard bone. Yeah, so if a person is being hard-willed about doing some transgression, but you speak to him in a nice, kind way, patiently with explaining yourself, so that a soft tongue can break the hard bone. Therefore, a person should be accustomed to speaking in a soft manner. We spoke about that yesterday, meaning it with. And he should not be used to speaking with harsh language, but rather with kind, soft, gentle language. One short paragraph to finish this page. You should guard your tongue like the pupil of your eye. Because the tongue of the fool causes him to go off the derech, and his lips are like a snare that ensnares his soul. Uksiv, and furthermore it says, Shomer piv l'shonoi, somebody who guards his mouth and his tongue. Shomer mitzaros nafsho, he's actually guarding his soul from anguish. V'ne'emar, it says, Mi yiten hecharesh tachrishun usiyeh lechem lochma. Would it be wonderful if you would just shut up, keep yourselves quiet, and then you would be wise. V'im teshev b'chabura, if you sit with a group of people, tov sheyomru lecha, it would be better that they say to you, daber, speak, mashet hashoyseh kokach, why are you so quiet? It would be better than that, than if they say to you, mimash tiyeh b'daber, while you're speaking, and they say to you, yidvarecha lehem lemasa, say, hey, you're speaking too much, be quiet. Yom lecha shtok, meaning, if you're in a group of people, it's always better that they tell you speak, than they tell you, keep your mouth shut. Yeah? So if you're going to err, better to err on the side of being quiet than of being overly talkative. Okay.